Good afternoon. Well, it is a beautiful Sunday afternoon and we got the kids down for naps and so we're going to try and get some gardening stuff done. Our plans for today are to put up a fence around our garden so that we can start to let our chickens free range again. And then I need to get some onions planted. I'm way behind on that. I've got some tomatoes that need to go into the ground, and then Lane's behind me mowing, as you can see. And then I've got some seedlings that I need to move into some bigger pots. So we're gonna be busy and we're gonna try and get it all done. First, we're gonna go check on the new baby chicks that we picked up earlier this week. We got 28 chicks from our neighbor down the street. They're not sexed, it's just a straight run, boys and girls mixed in. So we'll keep the girls obviously for eggs when they get older, and then the boys will end up in the stew pot when they get older. So, but they're really cute now to see, and so we'll go check on them and then we'll get started on some of our chores. So we got these baby chicks from our neighbor down the street, like I said, and they are actually about 3 weeks old. So they already have started to get their feathers. We always raise our baby chicks outside using the heating pad method. We don't use grow lights or heat plates, and we don't keep them inside. Right now, these baby chicks are living in our brooder, which is where we will keep any hens that go broody as well. And you can see it's set up for them to get some shade, and they also are able to get lots of sunshine and fresh air. If it's going to rain, we still cover them up with a tarp at this age just to help keep them drier. And there's their heating pads where they can get on top and get warm, or go down under and warm up as well. Well, I decided since I'm already here and I'm kind of waiting on Lane to start some of my other garden projects, I may as well go ahead and do some weeding. I am not the best weeder of the garden. Our garden definitely has more weeds than what most gardeners would find acceptable, because we do have little kiddos and we are really busy. A lot of times it gets away from me, but I do try to get out here and pull the weeds whenever I can. And all the weeds that we pull go straight to the chickens. Chip, chip, chip.
Toss more in there. That's probably good.
All the good ones are down here. Man, they're flying.
Yeah.
There you go, chickadees. Oh, I didn't see that one right there. This is one of the many reasons that I think chickens and gardening just go so well together. We pull up weeds from the garden and we give them to the chickens, and the chickens turn them into eggs for us. And so nothing, not even our weeds, go to waste. And I just love the wonderful relationship that chickens have with the garden and with us and our farm. It just, everything works together so beautifully. So these are my tomato seeds that I started, and you can see they're getting a little bit leggy, which is not a huge problem. When I transport them, I'm just going to bury the stems in so that they'll grow bushier and stronger. And in order to transplant them, I'm just going to take them out of these little growing trays, seed starting trays, and move them over into these cups that are biodegradable that I got online. And I will include the link for that below the video. And I'm just going to break up the seed starting trays a little bit and then pop the little seedlings out and move them into the bigger container. And I'm not using any special kind of dirt or seed starting mix. This is just dirt from our farm. And you'll see here some of the seedlings that I get out have 2 or 3 really close together. So close that I can't pull out one of the seedlings without damaging the roots of both. And so what I'm going to do in order to thin them out is not pull one up. I'm going to cut one off at the top. And whichever one is the weakest one is the one that I will cut, and that will kill it off so that the other one can grow healthy and strong without competing for nutrients, without damaging the roots below. Well, I didn't bury this one as deeply as I should have, so the other ones going forward will definitely bury deeper, and this plant might just end up being a little bit leggy, which is not the end of the world. It'll still grow tomatoes. It might have a harder time supporting them, so I might need to give it a little extra support, and I am going to go ahead and try and put some more dirt around it now, but I am going to plant the other ones a lot deeper. One of my goals this year is to grow all of our own vegetables, and I don't think that I'm going to actually achieve that goal, but I do think I am going to come pretty close, definitely a lot closer than we were last year. And so with that, obviously growing all of our tomatoes. And I have been trying to kind of figure out exactly how many tomatoes we need for our family, not only to be able to enjoy them fresh when they grow, which is very important to me, but also to can them up. And when you first think about it, you probably think, oh, well, we don't need that many tomatoes. But then when I started to think about it, we use tomatoes to make ketchup, enchilada sauce, salsa, and spaghetti sauce and pizza sauce, and we like diced tomatoes to go into soups and stews, and then also tomato paste. And so when you start thinking about all of those things, you end up realizing that we needed quite a few tomatoes. So I have started over 100 tomato plants, and we will see exactly how many that gets us. If that gets us close to our goal, it might be way too much, or I might have just enough or not enough. We'll see. One of the great things about tomatoes is that you can put them in the freezer after you harvest them and leave them in the freezer until you're ready to can them, so they don't all have to be canned at once. And so because I am growing so many tomatoes this year, that's definitely something that I already know in advance I'm going to have to do, because it just won't be possible to can everything all at once. So I'm looking forward to being able to divide them up into manageable sized chunks without wasting anything. And it looks like I'm about to, there we go, get a camera adjustment from a little one. They are always curious about what's going on and wanting to help and see what's happening. So Lydia here is watching me replant the tomatoes and hopefully learning important skills. I asked her if she wanted to help, but she decided she would rather go swing instead. I get asked a lot about how much time we spend outdoors, and the answer is we spend a lot of time outside. Our house is small, and so just for sanity's sake, with 3 little kids, we like to be outside as much as we can. It gives them a lot more space to run around and play and be loud and get that little kid energy out. And it's just nicer for me too. I love to be outside. And so anytime that the weather is even halfway decent, the kids and I are usually outside enjoying the fresh air. All right, I finished up with those 2 trays, and I started with 2 trays of seedlings and ended up with 4 trays of the seedlings replanted in the bigger cups. So I'm just going to lightly mist them with water. They're still so small and delicate, I don't want to water them too hard to where they would drown or break under the pressure of the water. And these little seedlings will go back into our greenhouse. They are definitely not ready to be planted outside. I won't replant them again before planting them in the ground. This is where they will stay, in these cups, and they'll be able to grow big enough in these cups to go right into the ground. And I will harden them off as the time gets closer for them to be planted. But for now, they're just going to live in the greenhouse and stay warm and stay happy. All right, well, I got 2 trays of tomatoes done, and I ended up with 4 trays total, so double what I started with for seedlings, which is great. I'm gonna put these back into the greenhouse. They're still way too little to be hardened off or anything like that. Even though the temperature out here is probably pretty good for them, the wind and the elements are not. So they're gonna go back into the greenhouse, and I'm gonna grab my next tray of tomatoes and keep working. Starting seeds for a garden may seem complicated, and if you read a bunch of things online of what to do and not to do, it will definitely seem more complicated than it really is. But the truth is, starting seeds is actually pretty simple. There are a few elements that you have to have, and once you add those elements in, you find that starting seeds is very easy, and just about anybody can do it, no matter where they live or what setup they have. So the first things that seeds need in order to start growing is heat and moisture. They don't necessarily even need light. I mean, when you think about it, the seed starts off in the ground in the dark, so it doesn't have to have light right away. It just has to have some kind of heat source and some kind of moisture. And even just the moisture on your hands is enough to help a seed start germinating. Now, it wouldn't help a seed grow, but it would start the germination process, which is why when handling seeds, you need to be so careful. You don't want to ever touch any seeds unless you're planning on starting them. Another thing that I see pretty commonly online is people making or buying special seed starting soil or mix. And the thought process behind this is that seeds need to have more aerated dirt in order to start and germinate, because the roots aren't strong enough to push down through really compacted soil, which that part is true, that thought process is true, but as long as you are making sure that the dirt that you use isn't packed down super tight, then your seeds will be able to start in just about any kind of dirt. Now you want to make sure that your soil levels, the nitrogen and then acidity and things like that are right. But if you've had success growing vegetables in your soil before, then chances are your soil levels are pretty close to where they should be, and your seeds will be happy growing in them as well. Just make sure you're not really packing it down in there, and the seeds will be able to start. Another common mistake with starting seeds is overwatering them or watering them with a source that's too powerful that crushes the seedlings. So if you are outside and you're using your garden hose, you want to use the setting on it that is misting it. And if you're inside, a spray bottle with the setting set to mist is the perfect amount. So the first 2 trays that I did were seeds that were started in some of our sandy soil. Now these are seeds that were started in a little bit more traditional soil, and I did a video where I started them and just put the dirt in and then pressed the seed blocker in instead of filling the seed blocker and pressing it down. And look at how they are coming out. They are coming out as perfect little squares. I don't have to fight to get them out or anything like that. I am so happy that that method ended up working out. I have a video where I did that, and I will link that below. And I'll show you here as soon as I'm about to grab one that it just comes out as the most perfect little square. Look at that. I'm so glad that method where I just filled it with the dirt and then pressed the seed blocker in instead of filling the seed blocker and pressing it out. That saved me so much time, and I can't believe that it worked out this perfectly, and so I'm definitely going to be using that method in the future. When you're starting your seeds, you definitely want to make sure that you have access to a heat source for them. So that could be a greenhouse or a sunny windowsill or grow lights, whatever you happen to have available to you. We have used a sunny windowsill before, but you definitely have to monitor the temperature there a little bit closer. And then we have used grow lights, and now of course we're using our greenhouse. So I'm going to show you a little bit more close up the process of thinning out your seedlings, and you can do this when you're replanting them into bigger cups. You can do this out into your garden when you direct sow. You just take a pair of scissors and cut the weakest one right at the base of the soil and remove that, and that will kill it without damaging the roots. So like when you plant carrots, those seeds are teeny tiny, and you will have to go back through and thin them out. When you go back through your garden to thin them out, for carrots especially, you don't want to try and pull it up because the roots are what grows the vegetables. So you just want to go through with your scissors and cut out the weakest ones and leave space for the bigger ones to grow healthy and strong. One of the really cool things about starting your garden from seed is that you get a chance to look around your house and use what you have and get creative. And I think a lot of times in our culture we say, oh, you need to buy this, or you need to have this special seed starting mix, or these special seed starting trays or light, or whatever you have. And I always like to think about Ma Ingalls out on the prairie. She didn't have access to special seed starting soil or to grow lights or things like that, and yet she still managed to grow a really productive, thriving garden. And so I think if we kind of step back and say, okay, what would I do if I didn't have access to all those things? How would I start this? Then we really get to look around and be more creative with what we have and use what we have and actually save some money. Gardening can be really expensive if you feel like you have to go buy all this special equipment, but if you're willing to just get a little bit creative and kind of troubleshoot some of the questions or problems that you're having, then it can be a really frugal, great way to feed your family healthy, nutritious food.